What's up, guys? We got another one. This one's a little bit different. It says how Ukraine defeated a major Russian assault. Tactical analysis of the Battle of Kupiansk. And Kupiansk is where I was stationed, so I really wanted to watch this one. Of course, I don't watch any of these prior to doing the react with you guys, so I don't know if it's going to be action packed or not, but I wanted to watch it. Real quick, my name is Saxon. I went by Vegas in the International Legion. I joined the International Legion for the defense of Ukraine in January of 2023. I'm still in Ukraine. I'm no longer in the Legion. Before I was in the Legion, I was a firefighter and an EMT in Fort Worth, Texas. Let's jump into this, guys. I'm really curious what this is.
In the Kupiansk sector, a Russian force of 60 main battle tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and upwards of 1,000 troops maneuver to make a breakthrough towards the Oskil River. But a major Russian defeat is in the making. With superior numbers at the point of attack, what went wrong? Well, I'm Navy SEAL Chuck Farr, and this is the Kyiv Post's Point of Impact.
Okay. All right, Mr. Navy SEAL. Chuck Farr.
The failure of this assault, despite its scale, highlights a recurring issue in Russian tactics. Quantity does not necessarily translate into quality of execution. Failed attacks are individual, custom-made, you might say, and they inevitably happen because battle planners ignore one or more of the basic principles of military science. To demonstrate why the Russian attack at Kupiansk was such a spectacular failure, we'll touch briefly on some of the fundamental principles of military science. The first step in the planning cycle is determining the objective of the operation. When conceiving the operation, science. The first step
What is this camo?
in the planning cycle.
Oh, it's German. Oh, this is Flecktarn right here, right? This is German. This is multicam. I've just never seen this one. That's interesting.
Is determining the objective of the operation. When conceiving an op, what are you trying to achieve? The seizure of terrain, the destruction of enemy manpower or materiel, an advance, a withdrawal. Objective is often described as the commander's intent. Notably, Russian troops are not briefed on the intent of an operation. They receive details, even micromanagerial orders, and execute them. Russian troops are told what to do, where to go, and what time to go there. Period. As we'll see, this often can lead to disaster. Another principle of warfare is security. This means taking steps to keep plans, movements, and preparations secret from an adversary. We'll see the Russians didn't exactly do this either. Another fundamental principle is simplicity. Is the plan overly complicated or ambitious? Is the objective achievable? And most critically, are your troops adequately trained to conduct this operation?
Right.
Will you have superiority at the point of contact?
Right.
Have you accounted for a reserve? And will your deployed troops be able to provide mutual support? The Russian attack was comprised of 20 main battle tanks, 40 infantry fighting vehicles, and armored personnel carriers. This was a considerable force, analogous to an entire battalion. But as we'll see, it wasn't enough. Maneuver is another factor. How will the employed forces maneuver against the opponent? And when moving, will terrain be used to maximize cover and concealment? Will the timing and location of attacks be optimized by fast-moving elements? Which brings us to the final considerations, and maybe Russia's biggest downfall. They failed to account for surprise and offensive. Achieving tactical surprise on the battlefield is an important force multiplier. In small units or components with asymmetrical force distributions, this is especially true. We say that every successful attack is planned the same. Only failures are unique. This failure to account for every principle of warfare will lead to a domino effect of failure. And that's exactly what happened here at Kupiansk. The Russian plan was to launch a two-pronged attack towards the Oskil River south of Kupiansk. The northern prong, operating toward Kolesnivkivka, contained 10 tanks and 30 armored vehicles. The southern prong, operating towards Kruhiliakivka, contained 10 tanks and 10 infantry fighting vehicles. Russian troops, especially those recently sent to the battlefield, are woefully undertrained and cannot operate at night. Most of the Russian attack preparations took place in broad daylight.
Oops.
Ukrainian drone operators soon
We saw a video
discovered a large
on that guy. I forget his name, but he's a badass. Just a young kid, drone pilot. So far, what he's talking about, the war sciences, right? All this different list of checks that you want to make sure you've got down before operating. I know personally, maybe only one or two of these is actually done out here in this conflict on the friendly side, I'll say, Ukrainian and Legionnaire both. So many of these things that he talks about, I'm like, if only that we did that before we did this, or if only we had the resources to check that box, you know what I mean?
in the vicinity of Pischane. They became a priority target. It was then easy to infer the likely Russian objectives. The two Russian columns advanced towards the river. The formation then split into a main attack, 40 vehicles, and a southern attack of 20 vehicles. This was Russia's second critical mistake. By splitting the attack force before contact, the Russians diminished the units available. But that wasn't all. As the Russian force split into northern and southern axes of attack, they maneuvered so as to put impassable terrain, in this case a watercourse and a swamp, between the two assault elements. As powerful as they were, each prong of the Russian attack was now fighting on its own. Now in column formation, the Russian units closed to contact. Movement in column means that one vehicle follows closely in the tracks of the leader. This was another lethal mistake. As this graphic shows, by approaching in column, Russian elements were positioned so only the lead vehicle could fire at Ukrainian positions, while every Ukrainian weapon on the zero line could fire at every vehicle in the assault force. Ukrainian troops were waiting. They were dug into strong, mutually supporting defensive positions, with interlocking fields of fire, extensive minefields in front of them, and likely avenues of approach had been pre-surveyed for artillery support. The Russians were driving into what the American military calls kill boxes. Ukrainian troops were equipped with hundreds of deadly first-person drones. The northern attack was the first to be destroyed. Watch as Russian vehicles encounter anti-tank and anti-personnel mines. As the first vehicles are stopped, predictably, the rest of the Russian column is stopped in their tracks. Watch as the vehicles pile up in confusion and now unable to advance or retreat. Then came the Ukrainian FPV drones. As the first drones swooped in, some Russian vehicles attempted to flee. As they turned, they blundered into more minefields. As the assault disintegrated, Russian troops began to dismount, not to continue the attack, but to run for their lives. Troops and vehicles now found themselves bracketed by Ukrainian artillery. In short order, all 40 of the Russian vehicles in the northern attack were damaged or destroyed. The southern attack vector quickly ran into the same fate. Mines stopped the lead vehicles. FPV drones closed in on the stalled column, and as the mounted troops tried to retreat on foot, They were hunted down by FPVs and well-aimed artillery strikes. Time from initial contact to total defeat, 20 minutes. In the course of that span of time, Russia lost approximately 18 main battle tanks, 37 infantry fighting vehicles, an unknown number of motorcycles, and four-wheel drive vehicles. Russian casualties are estimated at 1,000 troops killed, wounded, or missing, virtually the entirety of the two assault forces being wiped out. This is one of a myriad of reasons why Russia is failing with its ground operations in Ukraine.
Couple things. This is a shorter video, which is so just a couple more minutes, but I'm willing to say 90% of Russian armor columns go just like this. Maybe 80%, but I've seen so many they follow in column, right? One after the other, because there's typically mines all over the place. So they know if the first vehicle's good, they can follow. But like he said, then only the first vehicle in the convoy, in the column, can address whatever contact that they may take. So this is cool to see all the different kind of perspectives and examples that he's showing here, because it gives a really good idea of how it works and how Russia can lose something like 40 vehicles, 18 main battle tanks in one assault against a bunch of infantry and artillery, right? This is cool. Also, this is not sustainable in my opinion. Russia cannot be losing this amount of armored vehicles. Maybe the infantry, 1,000. I mean, I don't know. I hear these kinds of numbers, the loss of armor, the loss of infantry units, so often on the Russian side. It really makes me wonder, like, are the numbers legit, or does Russia just have way more resources than any of us expected?
The disaster at Kupiansk shows why the vast majority of Russian attacks occur on a much smaller scale, usually at platoon or company-sized levels, attacks of 20 to 60 men. Russian military commanders have shown that they lack the training to direct the operations of larger forces. Other large-scale attacks previously conducted at Vuhledar, Herokivivka, and Kremenna, they also failed spectacularly. Military observers see these repeated failures as indicative of broader, systemic issues within the Russian military, including command and control, logistics, tactical ineptitude, and a lack of overall war strategy. We can expect only further degradations in Russian combat effectiveness. Russia's not going to win this, and they're not going to be winning many more battles. For the Kyiv Post, I'm Chuck Farr, and I'll see you again at the point of impact.
That was cool, and it's nice to hear someone like who has as much experience as this guy Chuck Farr, Navy SEAL, to say Russia is not going to win this. That's nice to hear. I'm not 100% sure if I agree with him or disagree with him, to be honest. What I've seen so far in this conflict is Russia taking astronomical casualties and losses, but still continuing to win the war of attrition. So I don't know. Maybe there's a tipping point to where Russia just hits zero on their reinforcements and supplies, and or they just continue this slow, arduous process of kilometer by kilometer, meter by meter, marching into Kyiv. You know what I mean? Anyways, that was cool. I'll link the Kyiv Post in the description below. Our video we watched last night was one of the videos we watched last night was Kyiv Post 2. They've got some cool stuff, and it's in English, so that's nice. Please like, share, subscribe. I love you guys. See you in the next video.